Chapter 24. Abby and Zoran spent the next 2 weeks relaxing. Zoran showed Abby many of the places where he and his brothers used to play as children. He helped her get used to her dragon's needs and desires and showed her how to communicate with her symbiot. Abby taught Zoran how to sing and was teaching him how to play the guitar, which he replicated for her. They spent hours walking through the forests surrounding the mountain estate or swimming in the huge basin in the garden. Abby's favorite time was when they would transform into their dragon forms and fly through the tops of the forest playing chase and capture and making love in both forms. Zoran came up under the water and wrapped his arms around Abby. They had just returned from another trip of exploring and were enjoying the clear, cool waters of the garden pool. Abby shivered as his warm body pressed against her cooler skin. Zoran splayed his hand over Abby's stomach. "My son grows in your womb. I can sense him," he whispered as he kissed her damp shoulder. Abby's breath caught in her throat. "How can you know? Are you sure?" Abby pressed her hand over Zoran's larger one, turning to look him in the eye. "I knew the moment we made him. I felt your womb accept my seed and hold it tight." Abby's eyes filled with tears. A child. Their child. She closed her eyes, trying to use the senses Zoran had shown her over the past 2 weeks. She focused inward, seeking. She sucked in a surprised breath as she sensed the new life deep inside her. Her dragon was curled protectively around it. Abby turned in Zoran's arms and wound her arms around his neck, burying her face in his chest. "I can sense it," she whispered softly. She had never felt such a surge of love or fear as she did at that moment. Zoran smelled her fear and pulled her closer to his body. "Never fear, Elila. I would give my life to protect you and our son. I will do everything in my power to make sure nothing happens to either of you." Abby looked up. "I know. I love you so much, Zoran. It's impossible to contain." "I love you more, Elila." Abby waved a tearful goodbye to Morian, getting Zoran's mother to promise to come visit soon. She had many questions. They had shared their news the night before with Morian. She did not seem surprised at all. In fact, she looked very satisfied. She promised to visit the following month. The flight back to the city seemed much shorter on the way back. Abby would miss the quietness of the mountain retreat, which strongly reminded her of her own mountain. But she was looking forward to seeing Kara, Ariel, Trisha, and Carmen again. She couldn't wait to share her news with them. She realized she no longer thought of her life before meeting Zoran. She missed Edna, Bo, and Gloria, but she felt at home here. Abby looked at Zoran through her eyelashes, studying his strong features. Her heart swelled, as if there were too much love in her to contain it all. Zoran was telling her about his plans to change the spare room into a nursery. Abby sat back and listened to all his plans for the baby, trying not to laugh as he talked about making the baby's first sword. Zoran gently laid Abby's sleeping form in their bed. It was late, and she had fallen asleep not long before they arrived. He tucked the covers around her and kissed her forehead before heading out to meet with his brothers. He hadn't wanted to worry Abby. He had received a message from Creon late that morning before they left. Rathvin had been sighted by one of Haven's informants heading off-world. Quietly closing the door to their apartments, he ordered the 2 guards standing outside to guard it with their lives. He called silently to his symbiot to guard the outside balconies. Confident Abby was safe, Zoran moved determinedly toward his office where his brothers waited for him. "Zoran," Creon greeted him as he entered the room. Mandra handed Zoran a stiff drink as he moved toward the table where they had a holograph image of the planet on display. "What have you learned?" Zoran asked in a hard voice. "We received a signal from off-world 2 days ago. From what we have learned, it came from the Seraphim star system," Creon said, bringing up the holograph of the neighboring star system. "Seraphim?" Zoran asked with a frown. They had not had problems with the warrior people in that star system for nearly a century. "Haven believes Raffen has traveled there to gather supporters to attack our world. The Seraphim are renowned mercenaries," Mandra said. "Our peace with them came at a price, the firstborn daughter of the King of Valdier to wed the firstborn son of the King of Seraphim. Shame we forgot to tell them we usually only have males. Unfortunately, the bastards have a very long memory. It seems a son has been born, and they expect you, as the king, to produce the daughter immediately. In the meantime, Raffen has decided to enlighten them about how unlikely that is to happen and try to get them to believe we have slighted them in some way. On top of that, Haven said he still has support on Curizan from the militant group there who wants us to get into a battle with the Curizan warriors. It looks like he is trying to stir up enough conflicts with rival warriors to stretch us thin enough to max out our resources and inflict the most amount of damage," Trelan said. "The question is why," Keelan said. "Why is he so willing to destroy his own people? What advantage does he have?" "Luckily, Haven and his brother seem to be containing the problem on their planet. Now all we need is for you to produce a daughter, and that will diffuse the situation with the Seraphim," Mandra said with a grin, lifting his eyebrows up and down at Zoran. Zoran bit back a curse. He knew Mandra was just joking, but the idea of him offering up his daughter as a sacrifice for peace did not sit well with him, and he could only imagine the problems he would have convincing Abby he had no choice if their child did, in fact, turn out to be a female. "Abby carries my child," Zoran said quietly. He sat down heavily in the chair. Mandra let out a curse. "Zoran, forgive me. I would not have made that comment if I had known." Zoran waved his hand in dismissal of the apology. "Right now, I need to focus on keeping Abby and the baby safe," Zoran grimaced. "And happy. No one says a word about the agreement with the Seraphim. It will be a moot point if Abby gives birth to a son. Understood?" All 4 of his brothers nodded in silent agreement. "For now, we continue gathering what information we can about what Raffen is up to. Creon, do you still have an informant inside Raffen's personal elite force?" "Yes," Creon replied. "Haven has at least 2 inside the Curizan. They do not know about each other for safety. Raffen has tightened his security since one of the spies we had was discovered. Then we wait, listen, and plan for any possible scenario. Mandra, you and Creon continue with overseeing the training of the warriors. Keelan, you and Trelan work on making sure all our warships are ready and ground shields are ready in case of an invasion," Zoran said, gazing at the maps before him. Creon smiled grimly before replying. "You just concentrate on protecting your mate and making sure the Council understands the seriousness of the situation." Zoran smiled. "I think it is time to meet with the Royal House of Seraphim. 2 can play at the game Raffen is trying to play. I am, after all, the King of Valdier. Perhaps an invitation is in accord to show our commitment to peace between our 2 worlds." Trelan growled low. "You just make sure those horny bastards stay away from the human females. I'll rip every one of their damn throats out if they try anything with my Kara." Mandra, Keelan, and Creon nodded in response. Keelan added, "I agree. It would not be a good way to establish peace if we have to kill the royal bastards. Maybe we can hide the females." Mandra and Trelan laughed. "Good luck with that." Creon just stared down at the table with a fierce frown on his face. His lips tightened with determination. He'd be damned if he'd let another man near Carmen. He'd kill anyone who tried. Of course, knowing Carmen, she would probably beat him to the killing part. Zoran pushed himself up. Walking toward the door, he had an overwhelming urge to hold Abby close. "We keep a secured open line between us. Trust no one. I'll see you tomorrow."